Hi guys, so school hasn't started yet, and I'm trying to get everything ready for our community as well as our own homeschooling. And I've had several people ask me, how do you do this at home? How do you do this with multiple children? And last year I put out a video, but it was kind of lengthy, and so I'm hoping to redo that video and be a little more to the point and not as long. But I have a lot to say, so let's jump in. First of all, let's go over some basics of homeschooling at home. First thing is it's going to look different for everybody because everyone's situation is different. Some of us have multiple children that we're schooling, some of us have one, some of us have older, some of us have just a young one, or a mix. So it's going to look different in that regard. It may also look different because I work part-time. And maybe somebody who doesn't work part-time has a little more freedom with their time or how they arrange their week. So the first thing is just know it's going to look different for everybody. You just kind of have to figure what works for you that year. And every year you're going to have to reevaluate your situation and your schedule. So just know that every year it's going to maybe look different, and for you too. So that's kind of the first thing, and just because somebody does it a certain way doesn't mean you have to do it that certain way. Now there are some key things I think every homeschooler needs to keep in mind, especially classical homeschoolers, and that is to keep it simple. So at Classical Conversations, they're always saying stick in the sand, and really and truly, simplicity is wonderful. Not saying you can't supplement, but I think it's very easy for us to over-supplement, to overdo. And there are several bad things about that. One, you get exhausted, and then you start getting short with your children, and they see that. They get overwhelmed and exhausted. And learning doesn't become something fun, it becomes something that they dread. Or they might know, okay, well, here's school, and mom's gonna probably get mad. So just know, too, simplicity can go a long ways. You don't always have to have curriculum for every little thing that you do. And part of that classical model is good conversations. And so remember that, too, simplicity for you and your kids. And we'll get to a little bit of that here in a minute because there's different ways you can do that. Next is to have freedom. I'm looking at my notes. Have freedom. Have freedom with your time, have freedom with the curriculum, and have freedom with your days. So time. Sometimes you might be doing some school at the dinner table or before bed. It doesn't have to be 8 to noon. It could be spread out throughout the day. It could be some in the morning, some at night with dad. With days, there's days I work, so sometimes we do school on Saturdays. Who wants to get out anyway on Saturday? It's always more crazy on a Saturday. If you go out of town, don't freak out and be like, we have school. No, you have freedom because you homeschool. So just work with your schedule. We tend to be in the confinement of our brain of how we were schooled in public school, of it going from this time to this time, Monday through Friday. So remember, just have freedom. And when it comes to curriculum, I just want to say, I have some curriculum. We do Sax and math. And this curriculum, especially in the younger grades, is long. I can't do that because I'm schooling 3 kids in math. So I pick and choose what I take from the lesson. Sometimes we don't even do the lesson. They just get the worksheet and we work through it. So don't let this become a curriculum and what to say verbatim. Don't let that be a stress or adding more stress to your homeschool. Use it if you need it. Let it go if you don't. Or have it for backup. That's what I use. If I'm not sure how to explain it or I need examples, I go to this. But most of the time, I don't need it. I don't even look at it. Or I might be pulling it out for some review stuff. But use the curriculum to your benefit. Don't let it dictate you and how you school. Okay, let's talk about basics, okay? With Classical Conversations, you need to do your memory work, your weekly memory work, And you need to do, they ask that you supplement a math curriculum. So we do Saxon for the youngers and for the olders. Stay over there, or go get Ellie to help you. You still have paint on your face. 3.5-year-old. Okay, so classical conversations. Do your memory work that we do at community. Every day you need to drill that memory work about 30 minutes like we do in class at community. So at least do that. They do say you need to supplement a math for pre-K or kindergarten. It's very simple. I wouldn't even buy anything. I would just go over basic elements of math. Or you can go buy a workbook at Mardell's or something. Or like for what I did with my kindergartner is halfway through kindergarten, we started on first grade math and we just went really slow. So see, you can have some flexibility there. And then read. Read. Read to your kids. Have them read to you. For a language arts program, we haven't always done something. One time I bought a language arts workbook at Mardell. Sometimes, a lot of times when we read, I just point out like, okay, look at the beginning of every sentence and tell me what you see. Okay, look at the end of every sentence, what do you see? Okay, what's a noun? Show me a noun in this sentence. So some of it's you can even do while you're reading. We also got onto the program all about reading and all about spelling, which goes over the spelling rules and the rules of grammar, and so that's a really good program. There's others out there. If you have questions, ask me or ask some of the moms in the community what they do. For the littles, kindergarten, pre-K, it's really simple stuff. So I would just do with reading. Point out things as you're reading, and they'll start picking it up. So you can supplement worksheets, and we'll talk about that here in a second. And you can also supplement things that you read. And this is also another way that dads can get involved. So we go over our memory work, and there are a lot of already made correlation sheets of different book series that correlate with what we're studying in history. I think there's one out there for the Magic Tree House. There's one out there for scholastics, all you need to know about history, as well as all you need to know about science, correlating lists. Our timeline cards or our history cards. In your guide, under history, there's a number, and it tells you what timeline card goes with that history sentence, and there's a whole back to the card that you could read to your kids. Or your kids could read to you, depending on how old they are. There is the Story of the World series. A series of books. You can get this on CD or you can get the book. But my husband will read this to them at night while they're laying in bed. And I'll just tell them what pages to go to that correlate with what we're studying that week. So different things like that. There's books like this that you can get at the library, or we have some of our own that are really fun for the kids to look at and read. So lots of things, ways you can supplement reading for science, for history, for geography. Worksheets, there's a lot of worksheets already created for you on CC Connected if you're interested in getting a membership for that. We use those mainly for handwriting. So we do, I'll print out one that has the dotted lines for cursive. So their history sentence will be in cursive with a dotted line and they trace it. There's ones in print. There's worksheets where they can draw and match things up, like our Latin with our English, or science things. There's cut and paste worksheets on CC Connected. So you can always print some of those and have your kids supplement with those kind of worksheets. But again, don't get bogged down with the worksheets so much. And then another thing that's really easy to do is just have a journal and have them draw. Have them draw what we're studying in science, or have them draw what they think Charlemagne looked like being crowned emperor. Or have them look at the timeline card and try to draw that. There's a lot of science behind connections and brain when it comes to drawing. I have an article if you want to read it. So those are ways you can supplement, but remember, the core things is your memory work, supplementing math, doing some kind of reading, and language arts. Those are your basics that you should do every day with your child. Okay. Okay, it's recommended that you have a central station somewhere in your house, or like a notebook. And here's why. So right now we have our boards. We're gonna have a homeschool like second living room, but it is full of furniture still from our move. So we put all this stuff up by the kitchen table, which is going to be really great because this is another way dads can get involved. Is at the dinner table, dad can see what's up on the board and ask and drill memory work, okay? Or you can have a notebook. So if dad's like, okay, I'm going to watch the kids for an hour while you go do coffee. What are y'all studying? You can say, quiz them on this, and hand them the notebook or a sheet of paper that tells them what you're doing. But it's nice to have a central station where y'all can come together and see what's going on. Whether it be a board by the kitchen or a board in the living room or even in a bathroom, something. Okay. We talked about reading with dads quizzing at the dinner table. Let's see what else. Okay, another thing is to use community. It's valuable. Having that community is so valuable in so many ways. And what I'm saying is, if you're struggling with how you're doing it at home, ask other moms. There's so many variations of situations that somebody has probably been in a similar circumstance and can tell you what has worked for them, and maybe that will work for you. If the math curriculum you're using isn't working for your child, ask around, see what other people have used. Or a good book of reference. Or if your child's asking a question you don't know, text us moms. We might have been asked that before and we can give you a good resource. So use that community of moms to help you do this at home. Okay, let me also go into some books. I highly recommend every summer trying to read something to help you improve your homeschooling at home. Some of the books I have read in the past that have been helpful is The Unhurried Homeschool. And this is about simplification. Hold on. Because I tend to if anything, I want to overkill. I overshoot. And I have to remember to be simple. Echo and Celebrations by Lee Borton's our founder. And this is really her journey of being called to homeschool and the why behind it. And kind of a little bit of history about CC. When You Rise Up by R.C. Sproul Jr. This is just a good one about being called to homeschool your kids. And so if you think, why am I doing this? This is a good book to relight that fire. Classical Christian Education Made Approachable. $10 book. You can buy it at Mardell's or through CC. This is like an info meeting on steroids and a good reminder of why you're doing CC and why you're teaching your kids classically. It does go through the subjects, but it's very brief. So one of my favorites is The Core by Lee Borton's. And in here she actually goes through each subject and she tells you that one-room schoolhouse. How does that look when you have 3 kids doing math? And how do you do that in an hour to get all 3 lessons of the different age groups of kids done and moving on? Same with maybe reading or phonics or whatever. So she kind of helps you game plan and strategize. And so I like her book for that reason too. Another one that's really good is called Teaching from Rest, A Homeschooler's Guide to Unshakable Peace. And it's by Sarah McKenzie, who's part of the Reading Revival something or other. I've loaned my book out, so I don't have it to show you the cover. But she does a really good way of showing you how to do like a rotation. I don't know what she calls it. And that's kind of what we do. So I'm going to tell you our schedule. Now remember, I'm schooling 3 children, a 6th grader, a 4th grader, and a 1st grader, okay? So we do 30 minutes of drilling our memory work from foundations, 30 minutes of going through it and repeating it over and over again. Then we do 30 minutes where we dive a little deeper. We homeschool 4 days out of the week. So each of those 4 days, we're focusing on a subject. So one day we'll focus on history. So we'll take 30 minutes more, and I'll have a sheet for them to handwrite their history, to work on their penmanship. While they're doing that, I'm reading to them. out of the story of the world, or out of off the back of the timeline card, or from another source, the Magic Treehouse or whatever. And so that's what that 30 minutes is for. Then we do an hour of math. And what I do is I give my older boy go work on his math. I'll give my fourth grader, she's going to start doing this one, so I'll give her it and tell her just start, do what you can. And I'll sit down with my first grader and we'll go through her lesson. And I'll help her with the first side of her worksheet and whatever the new concept is. And then about 20 minutes, I'll say, okay, flip it over and just keep working. And I'll go to Ellie, my fourth grader, and I'll say, how are you doing? What do you need help with? Okay, what's the lesson about? Okay, and I'll help her for about 20 minutes. And then the last 20 minutes, if I even need it, which I usually don't, my son does it all on his own, I just say, did you do your math? Oh, yes, good. Okay, I'll grade it later. Put it in the pile to grade. And so about an hour is what we allot for math, and we're done. They get it all done in an hour or less. So like the kindergartner or first grader now, she's usually done in like 20 minutes. Usually 20 minutes we do both, we get it all done. So that's kind of how we do math, an hour for math. Then we do an hour of reading and phonics work. Again, my son, he's reading chapter books, so whatever chapter book he's reading, he goes off to a quiet place, he reads and he logs what he's reading. I don't even worry about him. For my first grader, we work on phonics work. We've done, what have we done? Hooked on Phonics, Learn to Read, but this year I'm going to start her on level 1 of all about reading, and then we'll go into all about spelling. And so we'll do our lesson, and I'll probably have the fourth grader listen in as we are doing the lesson, just as a review. And then I'll read to her a little book, and I'll give my daughter her book and say, go try to read on it, and I'm going to ask you questions. And then once she's done, she goes to play. And then I'll sit down with my fourth grader, again, about 20 minutes each, and go through her lesson, if she has one, which I think we're done with all about reading, but now we're on Essentials. And in the Essentials program, there is a spelling program. And so we'll probably go over our spelling words and our vocabulary words, and then I'll have her read to me out of her chapter book. Yes. And so that's kind of, it takes about an hour, a lot an hour. If we don't get it done, we just move on, and we can finish it later or at night, or not worry about it. Pick it up where we left off the next day. Then we do lunch, and then our afternoon is filled with essential stuff. So if you don't have essentials kids, you don't have to worry about that. But in the afternoon, the essential kids, they have to write a paper every week. So there's some part of that paper, that process of writing a paper that we work on. So like day 1, we're doing an outline. Day 2, we're doing brainstorming in our rough draft. Day 3, we're doing editing and starting on our final draft. And day 4, we finish our final draft. So that's what the writing portion looks like. I allot 30 minutes. I set a timer and we work on it. And when the timer's done, we can either finish it later or we can pick it up tomorrow where we left off. We do 30 minutes of chart writing in Essentials. So again, I set the timer and I let my kids go at it while I do dishes or sit down and have a cup of tea. And then we do 30 minutes of English grammar where they are parsing and diagramming sentences, and you are walking them through that process. And so the afternoon's an hour and a half with just Essentials work. And I think that's about it. That's what our school looks like. This first grader and my 3.5-year-old lay down after lunch so I can work with my older kids on Essentials. So that's kind of what we do. If you have any questions or want to know resources, I have other resources. This is a new book this year, Old World Echoes, and it goes along with our history. Each week there's stories in here. There's also CC Science cards, so there's one for each memory thing of science, and again there's information on the back that you can read. So the day that we focus on science, I usually read the science card. We might look stuff up on YouTube or watch DIY science or some little video that's talking about the concept that we're learning. Oh, and this book, my kids love this book. It's called Crafty History Activity Book. So if there's something in here that kind of goes along with what we're learning about in history, we might do that during school or maybe on a Saturday or on a day off, whatever. But the main thing, have fun, keep it simple, involve dad, and really make it a family thing. And I would say do the core things, the basic things, and then go explore, have fun, get outside, investigate, ask good questions, and be silly. We love being silly. All right, if y'all have any questions, you can either respond to the email that this link was in, and we can you can group respond, and we can share ideas or whatever. But I hope this is helpful, and I hope it helps you understand kind of how it all flows together. All right, bye.